Welcome to Our Community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. We are visiting with Judy Russell. She is co-chair of the Junior League of Stark County's 80th Anniversary Committee. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning.
A lot of folks may still be unclear exactly about Junior League, so I'm so excited to have you here this morning and talk about the history and the rich heritage that this organization has meant and has, as far as a legacy to our community. I don't think people realize how many things were begun because Junior League found a need and filled it. So let's get started. Tell me a little bit about how did this organization begin in Stark County?
Well, early in the 1900s, yes, the Junior League, there was 12 women in 1915. They named their organization the Junior Service League because they weren't part of the Junior League, but 12 women started volunteering in the community. And they started with a fresh air camp for undernourished children, and they hired the very first TB nurse in Stark County and paid her salary. And at that time, tuberculosis was a big deal, and it was a real need. And they've always tried to find a need in the Stark County or Canton community that was missing, and they did that by hiring that tuberculosis nurse to go into the schools and check on the children.
I just want to go back there 1 second and not gloss over that. This was a group of 12 women who did not have the support of a national organization behind them yet.
Correct.
Just on their own steam and with their own resources, they were able to get this going and provide that kind of a service for the community, a TB nurse.
And I think since then they have looked to the community as where are the needs and tried to fill those needs even after they became a Junior League. They established libraries at Mercy and Altman Hospital. Those first few years they were on their own, and then in 1934 they applied to the National Junior League Association to become a Junior League. Now that took a 3-year period because that didn't happen until 1937, but that was their goal, was to become a Junior League of Canton at that point.
And the advantages of being a part of something bigger than yourself, I guess, would be what?
Well, I believe that the fact that there were so many organizations that were under the Junior League umbrella became part of that organization, provided well-trained volunteers to go into, whether it was into the schools or setting up things at the hospitals. They were trained. And at that point, Red Cross oftentimes did some training, but training wasn't as widespread. It was also an organization that you had to be asked to join. You couldn't just go sign up and say, I'd like to help out. Like you could go to the Y or Red Cross, those kinds of things.
So it was by invitation. And who were they looking for to invite? Not names, but what kind of gals were they looking for?
Women that had time to provide volunteer service. And in the 40s, women weren't working like they are today. They stayed home, raised their families, so when those children went off to school, they were looking for things to do. And Junior League was one of the things that attracted them because they were doing things in the community that were important.
I'm guessing that it almost became a job, a career for certain people to be almost like professional volunteers. They certainly added an awful lot going so far back, didn't they?
Well, and I was placement chairman a couple of years, and you were required to do a certain amount of volunteer service in our community. And they would have done it anyway had it not been a requirement because that's why they joined the organization. But back then, expectations were kept very high.
You know, I hope this isn't taken wrong because I'm very happy for all the opportunities afforded to women these days. But my goodness, are we missing something in the incredible volunteer force that there used to be? I know that there are still some people who try to do it all, but you can't do it all. Something's going to give. And these were women who wanted to donate their time and their knowledge and their expertise to different areas and make the community a better place. What's wrong with that?
Well, those are all good things, aren't they? I would think that they're all good things. They did a lot in those early years through the radio. There was no TV. They started a program with WHBC where it was to encourage children to read. Mm-hmm. And it was called Tom Sawyer's Hour. And so they encouraged children. So someone was sitting at WHBC reading Tom Sawyer to them, and then they were encouraged to also read.
I think that was right around the noon hour, and I remember being one of those children being read to.
Is that
right after lunch? Yes.
Well, in addition to that, they set up hospitality shops at Altman, and in 1947, which is a big year because they only started in 37, they held the first Woman of the Year event, which is also going to be taking place the first part of May. Who they recognize women who have done outstanding volunteer service for the community.
Now, they recognize two. Not in the beginning. There was always Woman of the Year, and then they started to recognize two Women of the Year. Can you help me understand the difference?
Okay, well, the Woman of the Year spent a great deal of time with one organization and did an outstanding job for that organization. And then they developed the Community Award, which is someone who has a very broad spectrum of volunteer services.
Does a lot for everybody.
Right. has a lot of time to give of herself, which is wonderful.
I think of Proverbs 31, and I think, when do these women sleep? When you hear where they read everything that they have been doing, you just think, oh, my goodness, it just gives me a headache listening to it. It's unbelievable. These women are made of something else, aren't they?
They're very giving.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, in the beginning, which is very unusual for our generation and especially the younger generation, many of those women, for some reason, didn't have a first name. They were Mrs. whoever, yes. and I kind of laugh at that because so many of them were mothers of my friends, and I'm thinking, I know you really had a first name.
Oh, my grandmother never had anything because my grandfather went by R.H. Owen. So everything, I see clippings, Mrs. R.H. Owen. She didn't even have a man's first name. It was two initials, Mrs. R.H. Owen. So, yes, I hear what you're saying. And that was a cultural thing at the time.
That's exactly right.
So funny. Well, let's talk about the history and some of the things. I think people would be floored to hear of some of these services that we count on and have counted on for decades that were begun by the Junior League.
Many of the programs revolved around going into the schools. One of the first committees in the 50s was putting together a puppet program, and that went on until the late 60s. Also chaired that a couple of years, and we were trying to make it something that the kids would enjoy. They were being taught a specific need that they would have had. The last puppet show revolved around, it was called Susie Sweettooth, and she was seeing her dentist. And she learned how proper eating would help her teeth and the things she should eat and the things she should not eat. And after we did that presentation in the school, we taught the children how to make hand puppets. So it became a craft event in addition to a puppet show.
Something we're seeing now that television thinks it's on the cutting edge because they're bringing puppets with disabilities onto TV to have this relationship with the children who are viewing. And Junior League was doing this a long time ago, right?
Much earlier than we think of puppet shows now. We purchased Kids on the Block, and we trained volunteers to take Kids on the Block into the schools. I did work with that when I was with the Arthritis Foundation. The Arthritis Foundation bought the puppets that had to do with juvenile arthritis, and added that to the Kids on the Block program that was done throughout Starr County.
I just the other day was watching something on PBS or Sprout or something where a little boy in a wheelchair was shown how he could pop a wheelie, and I thought, we did that years ago with Kids on the Block.
That's true.
Yes, well, so trend-setting, aren't they?
Yes.
So tell me what else Junior League started.
One of the things that I thought was interesting that had not been picked up, when in 1957, the Junior League started a scholastic luncheon. It was held for the city schools seniors, and they were invited to a luncheon that had a really good speaker and would talk about future achievements after you were out of high school. And so that was one of the things that they did to encourage people to continue their education after they graduated from high school. And that was a really nice event to attend.
How did they decide what these projects would be?
They usually had studied at least 3 or 4 projects that they saw in the community as a missing need. I think with the program for the seniors, no one was recognizing. Everybody recognized sports figures, the star football players, the basketball players, but no one was recognizing the students that achieved academically. And so they presented that program to honor those students. And so they would find needs in the community and then turn them over to another organization within the community, and then find a new project to
I love that. Let's sit on that for a minute. It's not that they would start something and then continue to do it forever, because you couldn't do everything all the time ad nauseum. What they would do is get something going with the seed money and volunteers and get it on its feet, up and running.
Correct.
And then they would find an organization that would adopt it.
Right. And I think Rotary took over the academic program.
And that is why I think people don't realize how many things were begun by the Junior League, because they don't continue to stamp their name on everything. It's just they're the history part of it.
One of the interesting things was that when the Football Hall of Fame first started and did the fashion show, the Junior League was the coordinator for that fashion show.
I love that.
And so, and who would have thought about that? But they could see the writing on the wall that this Football Hall of Fame was going to become something really wonderful for Starr County. And so they started that because there wasn't much recognition as far as women were concerned.
Right.
So that it brought the football players' wives in and got them involved and the community involved, the women part of the community. The men were already involved.
And don't they love it? I mean, my goodness, every year. There's one, and I don't remember her name, but she is an enshrinee's wife, and she comes out and says hello every time, and she looks like she could model in the regular show. I mean, she always looks smashing and knows how to move, knows how to walk a runway. So it is always so fun to see them come out, as far as the enshrinee's wives and past enshrinee's wives.
Right. Yes.
So exciting. All right. Well, what else can you surprise us with here as far as begun by the Junior League?
One of the other programs that wasn't necessarily school involved was they did a dancing assembly, and it was to teach young 6th, 7th, 8th grade children, probably more boys than girls because they weren't interested in dancing. But I was fortunate. In my kindergarten class when I was teaching, one of the students' parents had the Arthur Murray Dance Studios. So I chaired that for a couple of years also. And the young men had to come in their suits, and the young girls came all dressed up. And
how old were these children taking ballroom dancing?
6th, 7th, 8th grade.
I think once again, I was the recipient of a Junior League project. I remember taking ballroom dancing over at Jackson. It was Sauter Junior High, and they brought it in, and we learned ballroom dancing. And you're right, the boys were not into it.
They really weren't. But I think that it gave them some self-confidence.
Yes.
And that was a really good program that was held. So I know my boys had to do that. They probably shook their head at me and, okay, Mom.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think it would go now with Dancing with the Stars and so forth. I think, that would be another one.
Another one to think about bringing back at some point.
Yep. I just took a look at the clock. We have got to take a break.
Okay.
Learning from Judy Russell all about the history of the Junior League of Stark County celebrating an 80th anniversary this year. Stay with us. You're listening to Our Community.